options, nothing to choose. I'm faced out on Netflix, I'm sick of the news. I'd sign up to Sky, but I don't wanna pay. I've been on furlough since May. And now I go and listen to a Cockney attitude. Ooh, breaking away. Got to find a better way. I'd rather watch Auf Wiedersehen again and listen to what these old men have to say.
And hello, and welcome to the very first episode of our new podcast, Auf Wiedersehen Again. And it is hosted by myself, Andy Sledge, and my partner in crime, Mr. George Bradley. George, how the devil are you on this fine and wonderful day?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Yeah, getting over my COVID jab, which I had, and I was a little bit ill for the day after, but I'm all ready to go, rocking. Yeah, feel good.
Well, do you know when you're getting your next one yet?
Probably about, I reckon it's to be about 12 weeks, but yeah, I hope I don't have the same effect with the second. I hope that's a bit better, but yeah, still glad to have it though.
So then, when you've had that, do you reckon they'll get you back to work then?
Don't know about that. I'll see. Yeah, there might be a little payoff coming my way.
Well, you never know. Let's get, like, if we get really famous doing this podcast, you might not have to go back to work.
Yeah.
There's always that. So what's the weather like? Because you are based in London, like central London, so Euston area. And what is the weather like down that way today?
Well, yeah. I mean, I usually tell the weather just by looking out the window because I don't go out too often. I've got to go to the shop for a pint of milk. But I went out yesterday, the first time. I haven't been out for about 4 or 5 days. But when it was cold and it was like a summer's day, I thought, really. It was lovely, yeah.
There you go. Well, hopefully things have turned around. Yeah, pretty similar here. A bit of rain. Obviously, we had a bit of snow, but things are looking on the up. So basically, the premise of what we're about to do is very, very simple. Both of us are massive fans of the TV show Auf Wiedersehen Pet. Now, I took inspiration for this podcast from the Talking Sopranos podcast, which I am a massive fan of. So both you and I are both big fans of the Sopranos TV show.
Oh, yeah.
And about 6 months ago, well, maybe it might even be nearly a year ago now, I think they're on about episode 40 odd. Two of the cast of the Sopranos, Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher, and Steve Sharippa, who played Bobby Bacala. They started a podcast called Talking Sopranos, and the premise is that it's a rewatch podcast where they watch an episode of the show and then they talk about it. And then when I started watching and listening to that, I then found out that apparently this is quite a big thing these days, and they've got them for they've started doing them for like Sons of Anarchy, Game of Thrones, all of the big TV shows. And I thought, I wonder if there's one about Auf Wiedersehen Pet. That would be really good. So I went on the podcast app and I had a look, and guess what? There was no podcast about Auf Wiedersehen Pet.
There is now.
Well, I thought, look, there you go, my business-minded brain. I thought, my good lordy lord, there is a gap in the market. Let's see if we can do it. So obviously, I racked my brain thinking about who would be a good co-host for the podcast. And obviously, as we all know, the major characters within Auf Wiedersehen Pet are Geordies, which is my heritage, but there is also a character who is a Cockney. So I sent the bat signal out to one of my Cockney mates who I know is an Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and you were good enough to answer. And here we are. We find ourselves in the position now, recording the first episode and getting pretty excited about the prospect. So obviously, what I've gone and done is put a little bit of groundwork in on the social medias. So we can be contacted on most forms of social media. You can email us as well. So if you want to contact myself and George with any recommendations for the podcast, you just want to get a shout out, or you want to say something, anything in particular about what we're doing, we would be grateful to hear from any of our listeners on our email, which is Auf Wiedersehen Again @gmail.com. So email is Auf Wiedersehen Again @gmail.com. And what I'll do is, through the wonders of technology, that'll probably be coming up across the bottom of your screen right now. I've also set up an Instagram account, which is @Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. I've set up Twitter, which is @Auf Again. That's unfortunately, I didn't get to choose the Twitter handle. That was chosen for me. So it's @Auf Again. That's AUFAGAIN. That's Twitter @Auf Again. We've got a Facebook page, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast, and a YouTube page. But if you're watching this on video, you're probably already on the YouTube page. So we would ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel, which is Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. And please share this information with all of your friends who potentially may well be fans of Auf Wiedersehen Pet. Now, we're also going to be available on the majority of all good podcast platforms. So we have used a system called Anchor, which is Anchor FM, which is part of Spotify, and they distribute the podcast for you. And we are going to be on Soundcloud, Spotify, iTunes, Anchor FM, Google Podcast, Breaker, and many, many more. And what we're going to do is we're going to endeavour to release brand new episodes every single Friday. So this first episode, if you're watching it on release date, we are releasing this podcast on the 26th of February. So hopefully you'll have seen all of the posts on social media, and you'll have waited with bated breath next to your podcast or YouTube app. And then the millisecond that this podcast was released on the 26th of February, you will be watching it right now. But obviously what the beauty about it is the fact that the show is timeless, and hopefully the podcast will be timeless as well. So we'd like to get a lot of people obviously watching and listening to the podcast straight away, but it is also going to be available for people to listen to, ad infinitum later on down the line. But all we would ask you to do is, whatever podcast platform or YouTube system that you use, we would like you to like and subscribe to obviously generate, listeners, etc. for the podcast. And obviously what this will allow us to do is this will allow us to reach a wider audience, which would do us a massive favour. So that's all of the boring bits out the way. So Auf Wiedersehen Pet, Season 1, Episode 1, If I Were a Carpenter. So did you know the date of release of this episode, George, the original broadcast date?
Yeah, I think it was 19 November 83, I think.
That's right. It was actually Remembrance Day. So it was the 11th of November, 1983.
A Friday.
Yeah. It was 9 p.m. ITV. The world did indeed change forever. So the writers of the series were established TV writers, which were Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne. And they are big, well-known TV writers. They did things like The Likely Lads, Porridge, etc., which I'm sure a man of your caliber would have watched some of those.
Oh, of course, yeah. All of them.
Yeah. I mean,
especially The Likely Lads.
Yeah. Mm. Well, again, The Likely Lads was a big. It was maybe a little bit before my time, I think. Obviously, it was, but it was, it was all set in the Northeast. But I was also a big fan of Porridge, and I had them all on DVD. They're now available on Netflix. But yeah, big fan of all of the work of Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne. The original idea for the series was by a gentleman called Frank Rodham, who was the producer. And he got the idea from a friend of his called Mick Connell. So Mick Connell was actually from Middlesbrough. We won't hold that against him. And Mick Connell was a builder who went out to Germany in the vein of Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and obviously got himself into some, scrapes and scandals while he was out there. And
yes, you would, yeah.
Yeah. You go out there, you know, young single men out the country with the beer flowing, and I believe
strong German beer.
Yeah, and I believe you and I, that's actually how we met, wasn't it, George?
Yeah.
So for the viewers, George and I, we've been friends for about 15 years now. And,
a little bit more, probably about 18, I think, 17.
Yeah. But it was 2006. That was 2006 that we went on the lash in Bangkok. And caused some fucking bother there. But as they say, what happens in Bangkok
stays in Bangkok.
Yeah. So the couple of the accolades of the show. The show was named number 46. Was voted, number 46 in the list of 100 greatest British TV shows of all time. I would think it might be a little bit higher, but there you go, number 46. And it was voted ITV's favourite TV show of all time as well. So the majority of the show was filmed in the UK and was filmed in Elstree Studios. And
Albert Square, yeah.
Well, look at that, George. I'm impressed. You've stepped up to the plate there with your knowledge. Yeah, so basically what used to be the Becko building site is now Albert Square.
Yeah.
So we're going to see later on what they actually did is they did, even though obviously it was filmed in the UK, for authenticity, did you know they actually shipped all of the bricks in from Germany?
Oh, I didn't know that.
They did, yeah. So what happened is apparently a German brick is a little bit bigger than an English brick.
Yeah.
For authenticity, they shipped in all of the bricks from Germany to make it look good.
It still managed to flatten Dresden, though, so it can't have been that good.
And that's the next episode, Who Won the War. For those keen-eyed people as well, obviously there were a lot of the show itself is technically based in Dusseldorf, but a lot of the outdoor filming, there was some done in Dusseldorf, but a lot of the outdoor filming was actually done in Hamburg. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I did read that. Yeah, it's a city I'd love to visit, actually, Hamburg.
Myself included. I've only ever been to Germany through the airport. I've not actually stopped and got off. But everyone I actually know who's been to Germany said it's fucking amazing.
I've been to the Berlin Wall when I was about 7 or 8. I've got a picture of me standing by it with the guards and everything. So
well, somewhere there's my granddad's turning in his grave because my granddad was actually Dutch, and he was. Yeah, he was captured by the Nazis during the war, and was not a fan of the Germans. Was not so like we would go like I remember when I was a kid, like when I was 12, 13, whatever, we'd go on holiday to Spain, and me fucking opa, like I used to call him opa because that's a Dutch word for granddad. Me opa would fucking get a skinful, start telling Germans to fuck off and stuff like that. So it was
he sounds a good laugh.
Oh, yeah, he was fucking blinding me over. Anyway, but like I said, so you can see that a lot of the actual location in Germany is filmed in Hamburg, and you can tell this because if you look at the cars on the road, the number plates have got HH in the number, which is the Hamburg initials.
And they got the steering wheels on the wrong side.
Well, exactly. Drive on the wrong side of the road. So, one more thing, one more bit of trivia before we actually get tucked into the episode is which is the only member of the Magnificent Seven that you don't see in this episode?
It's not Barry. Barry comes in. He comes to the hut at the end, doesn't he?
He does.
He's the last one, isn't he? Oh no, you see him first in the when they stop for a coffee and a croissant.
The answer to save our viewers' embarrassment is Moxie. So there is no.
Oh, of course, yeah. He's got the dartboard.
Yeah, there's no Moxie in this episode. So it was basically said. Hold on, that's my coffee machine making a bad noise in the background. It was basically said that the reason Moxie wasn't in this episode was they wanted to obviously sort of, they didn't want to overload people with the introduction of characters, and they wanted to save something behind. Yeah. So that is some basic trivia. I've got a few more trivia points, but we're going to discuss those during the episode itself. So, without further ado, we move straight on. So, the episode itself, like I say, opens up Series 1, Episode 1, If I Were a Carpenter. Now, where does that come from? Do you know?
Yeah, If I Were a Carpenter, wasn't that a song? Was it Cat Steve? No, I can't remember who sung it now.
Well, it was actually sung by several people. The first person that I think it was sung by Bobby Darin. It was also sung by a guy called Tim Hardin. I think it was Tim Hardin that actually wrote it, but it was actually made famous by Johnny Cash in 1970.
Oh, really?
It was indeed.
I worked for HMV for 10 years. You'd think I'd know all that, but we'll just go past that.
Yeah. So so that was it. If I were a carpenter and you were a lady. That's the only singing you're going to get on this podcast.
I've seen him live, Johnny Cash, before he died, obviously, but he didn't sing that one. But yeah.
So the title of the episode, If I Were a Carpenter, comes from a song that was made famous in the late 60s, early 70s. And just out of interest, we have already mentioned The Sopranos. Where else has this song been used? I've just given you a massive hint, obviously.
In The Sopranos?
Yes. So actually, in 2 episodes of The Sopranos, so it was used as the closing song for the episode Unidentified Black Males. And it was also sung, it was sung by Christopher in the episode No Show. So there's when Christopher, in the episode No Show, when Christopher gets made acting captain and he gets given a No Show job, and he turns up at the building site to see the guys that are now working for him, who are on his crew. He pulls up and he winds down the window and he goes, "If I were a carpenter and you were a douchebag." So there you go. If you're a fan of The Sopranos like me, you'll also notice that
it had some cracking music in it anyway, Sopranos. So
exactly. So the opening scene of the episode is the ferry. So that ferry will be going from Harwich to the Hook of Holland.
Yeah, I've done that trip myself.
Yeah. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with the fact my granddad was from Holland, I've done that journey numerous times when I was a little kid. And obviously, the song kicks in, Breaking Away, which, an absolute classic tune. And obviously, it comes up on the screen, written by Dick Clement, Ian LaFrenne, and the original idea is by Frank Rodham. And then it obviously comes up with the title, If I Were a Carpenter. Now, so the first person that we see on the boat is
Neville,
and the now famous words, the first 2 words that are uttered are
Dearest Brenda.
There we go. So Neville is writing a postcard to his dearest Brenda.
One of many.
Where exactly, the first of many, and he's essentially narrating what is going on. So Neville's on the back of the boat. It then cuts to the inside of the boat. Neville looking a little bit seasick, and we have Dennis and Oz stood at the bar, and obviously they're having a drink and having a chat and having a catch up, etc. And we can see in the background that, like I say, as well as looking ill, it's instantly being made aware that Neville is missing his dear wife Brenda.
Yeah.
And he's having second thoughts about coming to Germany. So the main reason that it's basically Dennis makes us aware that the main reason that Neville's looking to come to Germany and go through this is he obviously what he wants to do is he wants to get a new house for him and his missus. And obviously by going to Germany and making good money and earning tax-free cash, they can do such a thing. And here we straight away we come up with Oz's sense of humour. Do you remember the joke that he was telling in the bar?
Yeah, pelicans and penguins.
Yeah. So Oz's joke, he said they're talking about the tax man, and he says pelicans, penguins, and the inland revenue have all got one thing in common: they can all
shove their bills up their arse.
Which is an absolute classic opener from Oz, and it sort of sets the tone about his humour level. So next, what happens is we cut to the back of the boat, and what's happening there at the back of the boat there.
That's is that Neville again, not writing another postcard?
Oh, the car. It's the car, isn't it?
The Zephyr.
Yeah, the old Ford Zephyr. Now, with you being a little bit older than me, George, have you ever been in a Ford Zephyr?
I have, yeah. But my uncle in Coventry worked for Ford. So in the 70s, 60s and 70s, well, I remember more the 70s because I was born in 65. He always had basically a new car every year. So I've probably been in every Ford you can you can think of.
So there's the basically Oz's Ford Zephyr, which has got like blue doors and it's shit brown and there's smoke piling out the back, comes off the back of the boat. And obviously one of the first things that Dennis picks up on is the fact that there is a Sunderland sticker on the back of the car. And obviously he questions Oz about the Sunderland sticker, and Oz obviously makes tries to gloss over the fact and blame it on the fact that it was the previous owner of the car. Now, straight away, Oz starts his theme, his new theme of jokes, which is, very much, he decides that they are in a war movie and they are prisoners of war, and he's going to make jokes about, what would happen if they were in the war movie. So he straight away, he says, let's all get our story straight. We're going to fucking catch butterflies in Bavaria. So he is, starts setting the theme, which is carried on later on, where he, impersonates, German soldiers in war movies and stuff like that. So next, obviously, they, no surprise, 3 shifty-looking characters in a fucking shitbox car, spewing smoke. They get a tug off the customs. So, what's the thing that is most interesting to the customs?
The spirit level.
Yeah, you would think that a customs officer would know what a spirit level is.
Yeah,
a little bit. But again,
they look very confused, especially the girl.
Yeah, and she says, "What is this?" And Dennis says, "Well, I'll show you." And he puts the spirit level up against the wall, and she says, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, your well's not plumb."
Yeah.
So basically accusing the Dutch of having non-straight walls. And then we cut. So they've got through customs. They're into Holland, and we cut through, and the music kicks back in, breaking away, which is obviously the breaking away. They're all breaking away from different things. Oz is breaking away from his
Marjorie,
the drudgery of his life with his wife. Dennis is married, but as we find out later on, his marriage isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And Neville is trying to break away from
buy a new house. Yeah.
Exactly. Break away from poverty. So they get through customs, the music kicks in, and they're driving through the Dutch countryside, breaking away. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but as a Geordie, it's something I noticed. Did you notice that there's a bridge that they'd go over, which looks very similar to the Tyne Bridge?
Oh, right.
So there's an arch bridge like this, and obviously it's a lot smaller than the Tyne Bridge. But now, is it done on purpose, or is it just the fact that this bridge was there? But they very much show the bridge in the shot, and the bridge does look a little bit similar to the Tyne Bridge. And so now we cut to the back of the car, and what's Neville doing again?
Writing a postcard.
Exactly. So this is Neville's second postcard. He's in Holland, and again he's narrating what's going on, and he says, Dennis sends his love, and then there's even a bit where he says, "Oops, sorry, we went over a bump." And he's like, he's like, I mean, it's absolutely, it's getting a little bit soppy and a little bit sickening pretty much fucking straight away. So they then pull into the services, and they're having a cup of tea and a sandwich, and Neville's on his third postcard. And obviously Oz describes the way that he left, and says that he did a dawn departure, and Dennis was referring,
the first of a few, I think.
Well, this is it. So do you remember what he said about his previous German experience?
Was it something to do with to get a sporting life, wasn't it? I think.
Well, he actually used the word the Sporting Chronicle.
Sporting Chronicle, right? Yeah.
The local paper in Newcastle is called the Chronicle.
Right.
I don't. I mean, obviously, I don't live there. I haven't lived there. But you used to call them a Chronicle man, and basically this was back, and I'm sure it was the same for the Evening Standard in London.
Yeah.
Whereby you'd get the guy stood on the corner selling the newspaper, and it was the Chronicle man, and obviously, I'm sure in London, there you go. Well, in Newcastle, it was Chronicle, and like they used, like some of them would say the word Chronicle, Chronicle, and it was quite easily, understood, and some of them would go and like make some fucking weird noise. So the Sporting Chronicle. Well, there was also a paper called the Pink. So the Pink used to come out on a Saturday afternoon after the football with all of the football results in. So whether he was talking about the Pink because it was made by the same people, or whether he was just saying about the Chronicle, but that is the actual local newspaper in there. So he said, I went off to get the Sporting Chronicle, and I come back 3 months later. And Nev said, what did your wife say? And he said, what won the 4:30?
Yeah.
Nev then talks about the honeymoon and his 2 holidays that him and Brenda had in Menorca.
He wasn't too sure of the location, though, was he?
Oz is like, where is that? He's like, I'm not too sure. And then they come out, and they come out the services. Oz is tinkering away under the bonnet of the Ford Zephyr, and there's a little bit of a foreshadow here of what's about to happen. He says, better safe than sorry. He says, but, it just needs a little bit of a push. So, next thing, Neville and Dennis are pushing the Ford Zephyr, and then it cuts to the next scene, and they're on the road again. And you can tell they're in Holland because
it's flat.
It's flat, and they drive past
windmills.
There you go. So they drive past a big windmill, and obviously like I say, the car once again, bit of a shitbox, smoking away, They hit the services again, and this is probably the last services in Holland, before they get to Germany. They've got the the advert on the front of the services is for De Telegraaf, which is a Dutch newspaper by all accounts, and it's got the most complete newspaper written in Dutch, I think. Obviously, I did a bit of Googling on that.
Right.
Dennis recommends that Oz locks the car.
No. He tries.
Well, I don't think he tries. I think he fakes it. He's like,
yeah.
Like that. So they enter into the bar in the services, and this is where they are going to find their job allocations. So essentially, you've got the recruiter, who is the guy who's the guy who's in charge of dishing out jobs for the building sites.
The old boy with a beard.
Well, he's called Hair Fister. But just before that, who tips up in the bar?
Barry.
There we go. So Barry's like, all right there, Dennis, like in his West Country Brummie accent, and he starts straight away again. Barry lays down starts talking quite politically.
Oh yes, from the off, yeah.
Yeah, talking about the Conservatives and how Labour's this and the Conservatives this, and you can see the look on Oz's face. Oz is like,
get me to the bar.
Yeah, basically. So Dennis sends Nev off to get the beers in.
Who can't really get served. He takes ages. He can't seem to get a drink in.
Well, I mean, again, this is what they're trying to show is.
Yeah.
You know, Nev's personality is he's not very
self-confident either. Sort of in the
not very.
He's the least self-confident one, isn't he?
Yeah, not very self-confident, not very not very forthright. Doesn't like to put himself out. And he's like, he's sort of in the background, miss, and everyone's in front of him, just sort of basically shoving him out the way. And it's it shows the fact that he's a little bit of a weak, like a weaker character, little bit of a wet blanket. So, but obviously they're three bricklayers. But what happens?
Oh, there's only space for two.
So this is again where the title of the episode comes in. So Dennis asks about Dusseldorf, and he says I need two bricklayers and one carpenter. And Dennis says, that's all right, Mr. Fister. This lad here is a carpenter. And Neville's like, Dennis, and he goes, shut up, go get the beers in. And straight away, obviously, Dennis, later on, obviously becomes the de facto leader of the crew. But this is very much Dennis.
The gaffer.
Exactly, being the gaffer and being the dominant character, and wanting to keep the guys together. But he also, the thing about it is a bit selfish of Dennis as well, I think, because Neville did say, well, why don't we just go somewhere else as bricklayers? And Dennis is like, yo, we want to go to Dusseldorf. They've got the old town and that. Basically, Dennis is like,
biggest brothel.
Well, no, basically, Dennis is like, I want to go out on the piss in Dusseldorf, so we'll go to fucking Dusseldorf, whether we like it or not. They could have went to fucking, what were the other places they mentioned? Mönchengladbach.
Yeah.
Again,
I think that's where Barry was going to head for, wasn't it?
Yeah. But, I mean, the impression that they create is that Dusseldorf is quite a bustling metropolis, of a city with good nightlife, and Mönchengladbach's a bit of a crap hole. So so Dennis is like, right, we're all going to Dusseldorf. So it's a bit selfish, he sorts out Oz, he sorts out himself, and basically fucks poor Neville over, quite frankly. So I'm a little bit, it's a little bit. But he says, and he tries to make up for it. He's like, and he's a very good salesman, Dennis. You know what I mean? He wants. It was his idea to go to Germany in the first place. So he
has been there before, hasn't he? He's been there before, hasn't he?
Exactly. And so he's obviously pitched the idea to Neville back in Newcastle. He's obviously roped Oz in as well, so he's got a couple of mates, and he's Neville's obviously unsure all of the way, and Dennis is constantly reassuring him, don't worry, Neville, it's going to be great, it's going to be great, it's going to be great. And
they have a nice hostel.
And they haven't even arrived in Germany yet. And he's already fucked him over for a bricklaying job. So anyway, what he says, did you take woodwork in school? He says, he goes, well, you're a carpenter then.
Yeah.
All right, okay. And then, straight away, Oz keeps on the wind up. He's, Oz is, never knows when to shut his mouth.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, some people might have, made a comparison between myself and Oz in the past. I might suffer from that kind of thing myself. Obviously, Dennis then has to give Hair Fister a bung, and they walk out of the services, and who appears?
Wayne.
There we go. And
London.
The famous words. What does he say?
What is it? My mind's gone blank.
His famous, Wayne's famous introduction. What's the word?
What's the word? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, in his Cockney accent. And so, Dennis and Oz and Neville, they all fucking look around at this Cockney with blue hair and like dressed funny, a bit punkish and all that. And they're like, whoa. And Wayne's being very, he's hinting, that he wants a lift, basically.
Yeah.
The lads aren't having any of it. He's like, what's the word then? He's like, I hear you're going to Dusseldorf. You got yourself a car then? And they're just like, Anyway, they basically, they mug Wayne off.
And as he walks off, do you remember what Oz says?
He does. He goes, Spurs.
Yeah.
Spurs, you can tell. And so Wayne's obviously, a bit offended by the fact that they don't offer him a lift because they're all going to the same place, Brits abroad and stick together and all of that. And he says, all right, I'll do the same for you one day. So, like you say, Oz, Spurs, you can tell. And then the next thing, they are obviously taken off. And they go over another bridge. That looks like the Tyne Bridge. So there's another bridge in the shot that looks like the Tyne Bridge. Again, was it done on purpose? There's two of them now. Was it done on purpose, or is it just the fact that those are the bridges? Who knows? But what it would be nice is fingers crossed, at some point in the future, if we can maybe get one of the production staff on as a guest and find out if that was actually a thing. But that's definitely a bit of a pipe dream. We'll see how popular we get. So now we arrive at the German border, and Oz won't let up. He's talking about spy books and his pulse raced, and he's sweating, talking about, about the German, about war things and stuff like that. Anyway, they give the passports to the German customs officer, the immigration officer. He hands them back, and they're on their way. And as they cross into Germany, there is a song plays in the background, which is Deutschland über alles, played on a trumpet. But then the lads then very quickly cut in and start singing. What do they start singing, George?
Oh, you got me there. I can't think.
They sing a version of Rule Britannia.
Oh, right, yeah.
They go, Rule Britannia, marmalade and jam.
That's it.
He's cracking across, all bang, 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 bang. And what happens with Neville?
Another postcard.
Another postcard. But then we flash back. So the next scene is it cuts to a flashback scene of Brenda and Neville at home the night before they leave, and Brenda's telling Neville a story about how some man followed her home with a squint.
In a Mac.
Yeah.
And they're dodgy eyes, I think.
Yeah, a squint. And he was staring at me. He was staring. He goes, how do you know he was staring at you? He's got a squint. Neville's not taking it that seriously, but, he is. He's trying to make a bit of a joke out of it, I think. But you can see, she sits on the knee, and Neville's like, I don't want to go. I'm only doing it, da-da-da-da-da. And you can see that they're a young couple very much in love. And then anyway, so, cuts back to the motorway, and what's happened?
The car starts to overheat.
No, the car's done. Because they're pulled over at the side of the motorway, and then very quickly Wayne gets his revenge. So there's a lorry pulls up, and Wayne's in the lorry, and Wayne starts shouting stuff out the window. Oh yeah, how you getting on? No, I can't give you a lift. There's not enough room and all of that. So Wayne thinks he's fucking hilarious, which fair play to him. I'd have probably done the same thing myself.
Yeah.
And then Neville has a look under the car. And he says, the sump's dropped out, the engine's seized, there's oil everywhere, and he says, the car's basically fucked. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably just left that car at the side of the road. You can see in the background there's a road sign. The turn off to Dusseldorf is 1 kilometre. I mean, who knows what that actually means, how far away from Dusseldorf they are. But if the motorway turn off is 1 kilometre away, they're probably not that far away, but they're nearly there. And then obviously Dennis starts quizzing Oz about his insurance.
Yeah.
And so Oz admits the fact that he doesn't have insurance. What he did is he took an insurance policy out, went and got the green card for the car, and then went and cancelled his insurance.
Yeah.
And got himself a refund.
Bit of extra spending money.
Exactly. So Dennis Dennis says a phrase which I'm pretty sure will be repeated, and he says, "You're totally irresponsible, you was." So yeah, that was the last of the Ford Zephyr at the side of the road next to the Dusseldorf turnoff. So cuts to a train. The lads have found their way. They obviously walked off the motorway or got a lift off the motorway, probably hitched off the motorway, found themselves a train station, and then they've got themselves a train. And then they've the next thing, it cuts to the Becko building site, and they're walking up to the gate of the building site, and they look up, and who's on the scaffold and working away? But
London, yeah.
So, they were all thinking they were clever. Anyway, and it cuts there and basically shows that, Wayne got there first. So they walk on, and the first person they see when they walk onto the building site is Herr Grunwald.
That's it, yeah.
Now, where have we seen Herr Grunwald before, George?
He's been in quite a few. Grange Hill?
Yeah, that was what I was looking for. 10 points to George. So he was the German teacher in Grange Hill. Do you remember what his name was? I can't remember what his name was.
Mr. something, but I can't
obviously. So Herr Grunwald is, asking them why they're late. They're making excuses. Dennis says, let's go to the hostel and we'll get ready. And Herr Grunwald says, hostel is full. You will stay on the compound.
Yeah.
And he says, I thought we were going to be in hostel. He says, first serve, first come. So yes, whoever else has arrived, they've got to live in the hostel accommodation. Anyway, so they're going to go and stay in. This is the first time that they're being told that they've got to stay in a hut. And Dennis is like, it's pro. And again, Dennis has sold this experience to Neville on the fact that they're going to have
ping pong tables, etc.
Exactly. So Neville is a bit put out, and straight away Dennis is trying to play it down. Oh, it's pro tem, it's temporary. So they're on the site. Obviously, it's muddy, and this is Oz makes a reference to Stalag 17.
That's it, yeah.
So again, Oz's predictions and Oz's jokes of prisoner of war camps have very much started to come true. And, Oz clearly doesn't give a fuck. All Oz wants to do is graft and get pissed and shag birds. That's it.
Well, that's it, yeah.
And he doesn't care. So, who do they next bump into when they're walking towards the hut?
Bomber.
That's it. So they are they're walking towards the hut. They're trying to decide which one, and Bomber comes out, obviously the big giant of a man, and he says, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" And Bomber, in his thick Bristolian accent, he's like, "'Tis my mother tongue, my darling."
Yeah.
And he says, he goes, "I go for that one there." He goes, "The other one." He goes, "That's
the Ayatollahs."
Okay. We call that the Casbah. So it's Hut B. And again, Oz straight away starts up with a prisoner of war chat again. So they get into the hut, and you can see by the look on their face they're very disappointed with the quality of the accommodation. And Oz is like, "You will forget about your," and he starts off with his German accent, pretending he's the prisoner of war camp guard.
He picks his bed. He's straight off. He's on this one.
Like I say, Oz is like, "Right, this is me." He sticks his bag down, and Dennis is like, "Yeah, just grab yourself a bed, Nev." And so obviously Nev goes up to the locker.
Yeah.
the locker's just covered in
Porn.
porn.
Tries ripping them all down.
He starts ripping it down, but then he rips the porn down, and then underneath the porn, there's more porn. So yeah, he's desperately trying to find somewhere to stick a picture of his beloved Brenda up, and he sticks it up, and
above his bed. He doesn't put it in the locker. He suppose he didn't want it.
Won't put it away. Won't put it anywhere near the porn.
Yeah.
And then he starts writing another postcard. So Oz, you can see Oz unpacking his bag, and he takes out a pair of the most grotty fucking underpants you've ever fucking seen in your life. You're like, dude, like a proper fucking set of scummy wide fronts. I mean, absolutely horrific. And then again he starts. He's like, and so Nev's filling in the postcard, and Oz walks up and he's like, "All mail will be censored," and you know, and then he sits down, and then he does something that's pretty horrible, and he starts with Neville. He starts painting a picture for Neville of what it would be like back home. You know, you just get in from work and
the gravy
cooking on the thing, and you know, Neville would be Brenda would be like, "Sit down, pet, and put your feet up." And then just when Neville's starting to think about how nice it would be to be home with his wife, Oz jumps up again with a German accent, and he goes, "Well, you can get that out of your mind. For you, Tommy, the war is over."
Yeah.
So, you know, again, laying the theme of the fact that Oz is going to be a constant ball breaker, and you know, he's very much, you know, Oz clearly doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself.
Yeah. Everything's a joke to you, Oz. Yeah.
Everything's a joke to you, Oz. That's it. Yeah. So they cut from the hut, and they're all at work laying bricks. And this one of my favourite. This is the lost in translation. So Oz tries to speak to the Germans. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
And so he's he's got the broadest of broad Geordie accents, and I mean, like, you know, I mean, we're talking that broad. Even I'm a bit like, what's he saying? What's he saying? And then he starts talking to the Germans. He's like, "Are you from round here?" and all of that, and the Germans can't understand a word. And the
They look at each other, aren't they?
Yeah. But so the German turns around and goes, "Bitte," which does it means please or thank you in German. And please in German. He turns around and he goes, "Bitte," like, you know, what you saying? And he goes, "Oh, he goes, it's not as bitter as where we're from."
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's it for Oz. You know, he's tried, as far as Oz is concerned, he's tried his best, and it's the Germans' fault that they that they can't understand him. So that's it. So much for the attempt to cement Anglo-German relations. And you know, Oz even then uses the word panache to describe his bricklaying technique. So they ask for cement, and Oz, in his very xenophobic way, so Dennis says, you know, ask the Turk for more Derby.
Yeah.
Now she wants some more cement. Oz leans over the scaffold and shouts at the top of his voice, "How, Ayatollah!" So now this man is now nicknamed and named Ayatollah. Now, side note, where have you seen Ayatollah before? Do you know?
He was in it wasn't in 8.5 Hot Mum. No, he's in. I can't think. No, I recognise him, but I can't think.
He was in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh right, yeah.
Beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're walking through the jungle, he's one of the guides that's walking through there. So that's where he is. And then obviously it cuts to Neville, who's pretending to be a chippy, drops the hammer, gives the German the hump.
That's it. Yeah.
And you can see, you know, that he's just very, very, very uncomfortable. And then it cuts to a picture the horn goes off to signify the lunch break. But, you know, very much the way that the picture looks up at the horn, it's the horn going off. It definitely it definitely made me think of like the escape alarm in a prisoner of war camp.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So, you know, again, they're using that prisoner of war angle. And again, you know, so Oz won't give in. Oh, I wonder when we're going to get our Red Cross parcels, you know, and all of that. Again, very, you know, making references about how it's like a prisoner of war camp. And anyway, so Dennis says, the line, he says, "You live in a dream world, Oz." And Oz replies, "Well, it's a lot better than the real thing." And I don't know if you noticed, when Oz said, "It's a lot better than the real thing," they cut to Dennis, and Dennis had like this very pensive look on his face, as if maybe in this occasion Oz might have been right. So Wayne is sat there with his Walkman on, you know, bopping away, having his lunch. Oz wants to grab his attention. So how does Oz try to grab Wayne's attention?
Oh, he throws something at him, doesn't it? Almost had his eye out.
Yeah, throws half a brick at him. And as we've already said, the German bricks are bigger. So Wayne's very, very upset. He's with the fact that Oz is throwing a brick, whereas Nev got hurt, sore slipped. You know, Oz with the wind up with Wayne never stops. And then they go into the hut, and Nev's sitting there with the hand saying that the sore slipped. And this is where, you know, again Nev tries to basically, you know, go back at Oz and say, it's you're the one that's out of order, and then Neville, you know, tries to bring his situation and Dennis's situation into the same bag, you know. He says, "Me and Dennis have got a purpose." And
they have the same thing,
And Oz turns around and he goes, "I thought you just had a wife, not a porpoise." He goes, "What?" I mean, you know, just never, ever, you know, he's always got to have the last word. And then again, Neville talks about Dennis's wife, and again, Dennis has a bit of a pensive look, because obviously we all know, we find out
they don't know the full story yet, do they?
Exactly. You know, Neville considers Dennis to be a happily married man.
Yeah.
The same as himself. And as we find out right now, it flashes back, and in all honesty, Dennis's wife's a bit of a twat. Yeah. So I'm sure she's meant to be played like this. So Dennis and his wife, they're actually sitting. It's quite funny. So Dennis, it flashes back to before the leave, and Dennis is sitting with his wife.
They're at the boating lake, aren't they? Is that right?
So here we go. A bit of Geordie knowledge for you. Where they are, they're sitting in a place called Exhibition Park, which is a big park just near St James's Park, north of the city centre. And I used to go to school very close to there. And a guy I know, I'm not going to go and say he was a friend, some dude I used to hang around with when I was a kid, and I'm talking young kid, you know, I'm talking when I was about, 14, lad I knew who was a little bit older than me. He had a job at the boating lake, hiring boats out. So he was, we used to go down there. If it was a sunny afternoon, you know, we were like 14, 15, would go down there with beers and fucking smoke fags and, you know, be general nuisance kids and go out on the boat and whatever. So, yeah, we used to spend a lot of time hanging around that little boating lake as a kid. It's in Exhibition Park in Newcastle. That's a real place you can go to. But obviously Dennis's wife is being a little bit, she's like putting on a posh accent. Well, we don't want to do that. We're going to do this. And yeah, she generally just comes off as being a bit cunty. You know what I mean? So you're like, she doesn't come across well. And you know, they're talking about her new boyfriend. And
are they going to live together?
Yeah, we're not going to live together. And Dennis talks about him having a car, etc.
Ford Capri, I think he has.
It's, you know, so again, you know, this is in the early 80s, And so for people living obviously living in working class council accommodation in the northeast of England, at the time, obviously having a car was still quite not the thing it is today. Everyone's got a car today. Back then having a car was obviously maybe a little bit special. But so it shows what Dennis has left, and to be perfectly honest, he's I think he's had a bit of a touch getting away from her. She wasn't very nice, and obviously they talk about arguing and whatever, and they've obviously not been they've not been getting along for a long time. But obviously Dennis wants to provide for his kids. Anyway, so they cut back to Germany. It's the end of the first week, and they're all walking out the admin hut. And they've all got paid, and they've all got a packet full of cash. So this is where we first see Bomber referring to himself in the third person. He's like, Bomber's going home. Bomber's got a job in the Bristol bypass.
That's it, yeah.
And obviously Den says to Neville, wait till Monday and I'll get you Bomber's bricklaying job.
Yeah.
And so this makes Neville a little bit happier, and then Barry tips up again. So from Mönchengladbach, by all accounts, and he says that they're looking for Sparkies. So Barry's going to get himself a job up here. Next, it cuts. Oz is coming out the shower in his wellies with a towel wrapped around him. Bomber's getting ready in the hut, and he's got Bomber's polishing his shoes, and he's covered in tattoos, and Neville's very much staring at Bomber's tattoos.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, again, a bit of foreboding, because obviously the problem is later on, Neville ends up getting a tattoo, doesn't he? So Neville's looking at Bomber's tattoos, and Bomber's talking about his tattoos. He's like, you boys, was it you kids sew badges on your rucksack? Bomber gets them on his body. And again, Bomber's talking about himself in the third person. And all the lads go out and they talk about Bomber taking them to the brothel. And Bomber's ready. And this is his famous thing. Bomber's ready, Bomber's away. And he's all suited and booted in the walkout. And they all get into taxis. So who stays behind?
Oh, Bomber and Oz.
No. So
sorry, in the hut. Neville, yeah.
Neville and Barry. So,
that's it, Neville and Barry, yeah.
So then it cuts, and next is, Neville's writing another postcard, Dearest Brenda. It's Friday night, and it's just Neville and Barry in the hut. And Barry then starts talking about how he doesn't go out and he sends all his monies back to his
Bromwich Building Society, yeah.
The West Bromwich District Building Society. And, he talks about, and then straight away, Barry's like got a victim. Barry's got a captive audience. So what does he do? He fucking starts talking about sightseeing in Bruges, and he fucking whips out these Polaroid pictures and starts showing Nev. So Nev's like, locked in a hut with fucking boring Barry looking at Polaroid pictures of Bruges. It then cuts to the bar, and we've got a German bar band singing ABBA songs in German. So Oz walks up to the bar, and obviously, even though Oz has been a bit of a twat all week to Wayne, Wayne buys Oz a drink, and you can see like Oz sort of walks up to the bar and looks at Wayne, is he's on the cadge basically. Oz got absolutely no shame whatsoever, and Wayne's obviously got the in with the barmaid. He's like, Heidi, can I have another drink?
Yeah.
And they talk about the brothel, and Oz pictures the brothel like from something out of a Western movie,
That's it.
With a man playing a piano in the background and da 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 da. And Wayne's like, I'm not going, I'm not paying for it. And as we soon discover, Wayne has already pulled the barmaid. Wayne, ladies' man. So we now cut to the brothel itself, which is, if anyone's been to Amsterdam, it's a little bit sort of like that. You've got the girls in the windows with the red lights, etc. But there's also girls on the street carrying dogs. Now, a couple of bits of trivia. Do you know why they're carrying dogs?
No.
Well, apparently back in the day, now it's all legal and stuff like that. But apparently it's legal if they're inside the building. If they're outside the building, it's not legal. But what they do is they carry a little dog with them. So
they're walking the dog. Yeah.
Exactly. So if the police come up and say, "What you doing?"
Yeah.
Then the hooker can be like, "Well, I'm walking my dog." Yeah. So that's why they've all got dogs. And secondly, did you know that most of them were real hookers?
Oh, I know some of them were transsexuals, weren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yes. So what happened it was filmed in Hamburg, and they've gone to some red light district in Hamburg, and they've gone up to someone and said, "We're filming a TV show. We need a load of brasses." And so they've fucking, whoever did it, organised it, filled up a bus full of hookers and took it over to where they were filming.
Yeah.
And apparently, it said, the trivia that I read was the majority of them were transsexuals.
Yeah.
So, lady boys, whatever you want to call it. So they're in the brothel. Obviously not what Oz expected. But then who's the first person to bump into at the brothel?
Bomber.
No. Bomber's with them. The first person to see at the brothel is Ayatollah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Straight away. Oz starts taking the piss. He's like, "Oh, Ayatollah, this not allowed where you come from." So again, Oz won't let up. Anyway, Bomber clocks a bird, and he's like, "That's what Bomber wants. That's what."
Little small blonde, I think, if I remember.
Yeah. And so Bomber goes over, and he's like, "You belongs to Bomber." And then Oz looks up, and Oz sees what he wants.
Susie Wong.
Susie Wong. Now, do you know where that name comes from?
Yeah, I can't remember now. Susie Wong.
Well, it was a famous book.
Oh yes. Yeah.
But I actually read it. I found it in some charity shop years ago. But yeah, it was a famous book about an English guy that lived in a brothel in Hong Kong. Yeah. And one of the girls was called Susie Wong.
That's it, yeah.
And so Oz says, "Oh, that'll do, Susie Wong." Anyway, so Oz is looking at Susie Wong, and this fucking horrific, very likely transsexual old woman walks up to Dennis. Dennis looks at she's bigger than Dennis. And Dennis looks her up and down, and Dennis is like, "Oh, I think I've changed my mind." And Dennis goes. And Dennis says, "I'm going to go over there and have a fag, and I'll wait for you, and we'll get a taxi back." And Oz says, "Oh, you've got to hold back it." Anyway, so they get back to the hut in the middle of the night, and Barry's like, "Could you be quiet, please?" Anyway, Neville wakes up, and Oz is so happy, and he says, and Neville says, "What was it like?" And Oz was like, "It was magic." And he says, "Oh," and he's like, "Where's Bomber?" He goes, "Oh, Bomber's still there. I think he's got a season ticket." And Barry's like, "Be quiet again." And Oz says, "Bollocks, you know." Anyway, he says, "Oh, she was Eurasian, Nev." And then, he starts regaling Nev with his exploits. And then he comes up. This is one of the greatest fucking lines.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And he says, "I tell you what, Nev," he says, "sex is in its infancy in Gateshead." That's fucking one of the best lines on the entire show, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, next it cuts to the next day. Nev's coming in with a football. They've been playing the Turks at football. And he says, "Turkey 2, England 3. And Bomber's lying on his bed. And Nev's like, "Why aren't you going?" Bomber said, "You said you were going." And what's happened?
He's done all his money.
He's fucking blown the lot. And Nev's like, "You said you had nearly 900 quid. And he's like, "You didn't spend it all in the brothel." He says, No. He goes, "Poker was my downfall." So he basically lost all he drank loads of schnapps. and he lost at poker. So now Bomber's staying. He's keeping his job, and it's a bit of a letdown for Nev for the Bricky job.
Mm.
So Bomber's like, I'm going to be on the straight and narrow from this moment forward. And then it cuts, and Bomber is working like a man possessed, laying 2 bricks at a time. And
tell him to slow down, don't they? Slow down.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Apparently, that's what they do on a building site. Like if you work too fast and you start, basically what you're doing is you're showing up the other workers.
That's it.
Yeah. They'll get the fucking raging hump. And and again, Oz comes out. He says to Dennis, he says, "What does that mean?" And Dennis says it means slow down. He goes, "Oh, that's what Susie Wong was saying to me." Anyway, cut to the end of the day. Nev's jacked it in. And he says, I'm no chippy, Dennis. And he says, right, he says, you're going to go out with the lads on Friday night. And anyway, so cuts to the Friday night. They're all as dressed in their best clothes as they can. And
the ABBA singers there again. Yeah,
well, you actually hear Oz say, he says, whoa, they've got some canny looking birds, the Krauts. And Nev actually checks out some bird in the street, and Dennis chastises him and says that we thingy. But like you say, the band, and they're now playing. Do you know what? Have you noted down what the song they were playing?
Oh, I can't remember. What was it?
Don't stand so close to me.
Oh yeah.
They're singing in English this time, and so Bomber, who is on the straight and narrow, is already in the bar, and he's
sitting there,
already a few pints deep, and Bomber's like, it's my round, and he buys them a beer each and a Williams schnapps, and Nev takes a sip of the Williams schnapps, and he says, ooh, reminds me of pears, and I mean, it's probably fucking lethal, that absolutely lethal. Anyway, Neville starts watching them play the dice game, says it looks pretty simple, and he's warned off. Dennis warns him off the dice game, saying he lost 50 quid. Anyway, Neville says that he spoke to Brenda, and Brenda saw Vera, and he's, this is when the truth comes out that Dennis's relationship is about to end in divorce. And anyway, you see Wayne then leaves with the barmaid, and it's later on in the night, and Nev's playing dice, and by all accounts is actually winning.
Yeah.
Now, Dennis then does something which is quite possibly the stupidest thing that we've ever seen him do. And what he does is Dennis walks out the bar and he leaves Oz in charge. And he says, don't let him get into any trouble. And Oz is like, oh, aye. And then straight away they cut to the next morning. Dennis wakes up in the morning and Neville is nowhere to be seen. Oz is in bed and Dennis is like, where's Neville? And he's like, oh, he went out with Bomber and the lads. Barry's again, can you be quiet, please? Can you be quiet, please? And this is what, again, Oz's favourite saying.
Bollocks.
Double bollocks. And then Nev walks into the hut looking like he's been dragged through a hedge backwards. And he's questioned, and Dennis says, where were you? He says, I woke up at the train station. And he says, all right, you better get your gear together. He says, I'm not going. And Dennis is like, well, you're not going. He says, I bet you've lost all your money, haven't you? And Nev unloads his pockets, and whatever he's got in his pockets, by all accounts, is quite a substantial
charter a plane,
Yeah. So Nev clearly won a lot of money at the game of dice, but he's like, I'm not going. And he's like, well, you've got nothing to be ashamed of. You fucking, you've got all the money. He goes, it's not that. He goes, I'm not going home ever. And then he reveals, what does he reveal?
The tattoo.
So Neville pulls down his shirt sleeve, and he's got this tattoo, and it says Neville and Lottie.
Lottie, yeah.
It says, who's Lottie? And he says, I can't remember. And that's it, and that's the end of the episode. So it cuts to the song, the theme, the exit theme, which is that living all right, working on the site from morning till night. That's living all right. There are, couple of credits there. Talks about Michael Sheard, who was Herr Grunwald, who was the in Grange Hill. Caroline Hutchinson, who played Vera. Julia, I forgot to write her surname down, who was Brenda.
I think she died quite young, Vera, I think.
She did, yes. It was actually the anniversary of her death the other day. I think on the Auf Wiedersehen Pet Twitter page.
Yeah.
She died in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm sure she was even though she was a bit of a twat of a character, I'm sure she was a very nice lady in real life. And comes up with the Ayatollah's name. And again, he was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The group, the name of the group in the bar was Expose.
That's it, yeah.
And that was it. So the executive producer was Alan McKeown, produced by Martin McKeon, directed by Roger Bamford. And that is the first episode of Auf Wiedersehen Pet, If I Were a Carpenter. So that's it. So we've now set the scene of, one of the greatest TV shows to ever be produced. And we're all, sitting with bated breath about what's about to happen next week. So absolutely fantastic. It was, I really, really enjoyed going over the episode in a bit of detail there. So what I did, I'm sure you probably did the same there, George, is I watched the episode straight through, and then I, watched it back and paused it and wrote me notes as well. So we, believe it or not, apparently, this was the first time ever that such strong regional accents on the TV. And there was even a lot of people called up and complained that that they couldn't understand what was being said on the telly. It was, and like I say, it was broad enough for me to not understand it myself.
Yeah, initially they just thought it wasn't going to work,
Yeah, but it was taken to heart, and now it's got a massive, massive cult following, and hopefully you and I can also gain a massive cult following for the podcast. Yeah. So that's the end of episode 1. So we will be back next Friday with episode 2. So please remember, if you could like and subscribe wherever you are watching the podcast. If you've got any suggestions or anything that you want to talk about, please do email us at aufwiedersehenagain@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Auf Again. Like the Facebook page of Wiedersehen Again Podcast, and also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. We're available on all podcast platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Google Podcast, Breaker, and many more. And new episodes will be released every Friday. So please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow me on Instagram at Andy.Sledge. Not allowed on Twitter anymore. I was a bit too forthcoming with the swear words on Twitter. So, I'm sure thingy. And your good self, George, what's your Instagram handle?
Oh God, I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Was it George London or something like that?
Well, you can get me on Facebook, just George Bradley. I'll come up on Facebook.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, look,
I'm not barred.
Yeah, well, again, I think we're both on a Facebook ban at the moment. So, but you can get me on Facebook, Andy Sledge, and like I say, via the Facebook page. And we will be back next week with episode 2. So thanks very much for tuning in.
Yeah, Auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah, and Auf Wiedersehen Pet.
All out of options, nothing to choose. I'm pissed out on Netflix, I'm sick of the news. I'd sign up to Sky, but I don't want to pay. I've been on furlough since May. Now I go and listen.